Hey everybody, so in part one, we left off where I moved back to my hometown due to the effects of ongoing spiritual warfare at the time, and moving back home would be where I discovered I was actually being targeted through witchcraft and spell work. But I just realized I skipped over so many details, like what exactly the spiritual warfare was that caused me to eventually move back to my hometown for 8 months after having left home when I left for college and then moving directly to the East Coast where I'd been living for over a decade. You have to realize I hadn't moved back to my hometown since I left for college at the age of 17. I made that decision when I graduated from high school. That's how toxic it was to me. I only went home for holidays, weddings, special occasions, short-term visits just for a matter of days, once or twice a year tops. But I need to rewind a little bit to before the big move back to my hometown, which was hell, pure hell. But first, I'm going to describe some of the experiences of spiritual warfare that happened while I was still in New York that led to me having to make the dreaded move that I vowed I would never make all the way back home to California. So, first, I'm going to explain the warfare experience. Then I'll get to the move back home and start to explain the signs that led to me realizing who was targeting me in witchcraft, which includes that person's actual confession and them telling me that they wanted me to die. I realized I'd skipped a lot towards the end of part one because I've already talked about some of these experiences here and there on my channel, but I realize I'm now chronicling these experiences in detail through this little mini series I'm creating within my channel. So I'm gonna try my best to be cohesive. Okay, so let's talk about the details of some of my actual spiritual warfare experiences that led to me having to leave my beloved New York City for 8 excruciating months. And just note, when there's an older family member who engages in spiritual warfare against you, it is very possible they've been trying to afflict you since childhood and are mad that you're even still here. The woman in my family has no spiritual powers herself, but she knows people and pays people who do. And I'll explain why she does it and how she started giving me hints that it was her, even though I never told her that I was going through spiritual warfare. I learned never to confide in her about anything at all, ever, since I was like 12 years old. But we'll get back to the why and how. First, I just want to tell you what happened in my spiritual warfare experience. So to start, I need you all to know I'm a hustler. I'm not lazy. I'm hyper independent. I hate asking for help, and again, I moved out of my parents' house when I was 17 and never moved back in. I graduated college and moved straight to DC for 5 years, and then moved directly from DC to New York, where I've been living ever since. I always had a job. I had my own apartment in my own name, no co-signer. I paid my own rent. I was a go-getter, a one-man band. I depended on nothing but me and the grace of God, and I always had favor from God. And I think my family knew that. In fact, I know they did. They've commented on opportunities I got that they didn't get. Not because opportunities were just given to me, but because I went for them, and then God would grant them to me. But I was used to not getting things right away because I'm also autistic. I'm on the spectrum, which I also credit my level of intuition to. But I don't want to get into too many tangents. My point is, I'm a doer until I didn't. And this part was a big problem for me because I'm used to having to work twice as hard to do just as well as the next person, but now I felt like I couldn't even try. All of a sudden, I started feeling really tired. At first, I just figured I can't stay up late anymore and work off 6 hours of sleep like I used to, so I figured I just have to start going to sleep earlier and get more hours of sleep. But I either couldn't fall asleep at night, or even if I did get a full 8 hours of sleep, I still couldn't get myself out of bed in the morning. It would take the jaws of life for me to just sit up. Then I'd make my way to the shower and almost pass out in the shower. I'd get out the shower, I'd still be wrapped up in a towel, and I'd just sit on the bed extremely exhausted from just having taken a shower, like I just carried a hippopotamus on my back when I entered the room. It got to a point where I was going to bed at 8 p.m., where I was getting a straight 12 hours of sleep. 12 consecutive hours and still couldn't get up out of bed in the morning. I'm telling you what it took for me to open my eyes and just sit up, not even step out of the bed, just raise my upper body and sit up in the bed. It would take the jaws of life for me to get out of the house and make it to work. I would move like a sloth or a slug because I felt like I had a bag with 100 pounds of bricks hanging from each limb. I always felt like I was moving in slow motion. Mind you, I have no children. I was eating whole meals like salmon and spinach and steamed rice with fruits and vegetables, but I felt like I had the bones and blood cell count of a 98-year-old woman because my energy levels and flexibility suddenly felt so depleted. Then my back started killing me out of nowhere. So I bought a new mattress, I started taking vitamins, I was going to bed at 8 p.m., I stopped drinking coffee, and it was only getting worse. And days were turning into months, months turned into a whole year, and I started having more pain throughout my body. So I finally went to the doctor because I knew something was wrong. I asked to have blood work done and I asked for an x-ray on my back because I was sure I had scoliosis and some serious cell deficiencies. I even got a pap smear just to check out everything. I got the x-rays back, they said my spine was fine. I got my blood work back, everything was normal. The pap smear came back from the lab and everything was a-okay. The doctor tells me I'm fine and I'm like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? I'm in excruciating back pain, I'm tired as hell, and I'm as nimble as a twig. I feel brittle, like if I fall, I'm gonna break, not bend. And I'm way too young for this. But all my results came back normal, and they took multiple samples. And it wasn't only physical exhaustion and bodily pain. It was brain fog, a total lack of mental clarity. I couldn't remember what I was supposed to be doing from moment to moment. And I'm not talking about the occasional forgetfulness or your normal occasional fatigue. I'm talking about all of this on a heightened, debilitating level. It was every single day, and it was only getting worse. And then the spiritual warfare started following me to the office. There was this little team of 3 musketeers, and their leader was obsessed with me. These women were twice my age, and they had their own little sub-department. We didn't even do any work together. My workflow was completely separate from their line of work, but she wanted to act like she was my supervisor and would try to report anything I did, which only led to her exposing her obsession with me and embarrassing herself. She would constantly try to document what time I came in to work and what time I left. This one time she thought she caught me and said, "Oh, you had an Amazon package delivered at 10:30 a.m. this morning, but don't worry, I signed for it since you didn't make it to work yet." To which I responded, I was at work at the downtown office where I had my morning meeting. And you don't need to sign for my packages. I can pick them up from the mailroom, thanks. She was so pissed. But anyway, I could talk a whole hour about the 3 musketeers and their antics alone. But there was so much more going on, so much more spiritual warfare going on and following me in all the different areas of my life. Oh, and they would recruit more people to join them in teaming up against me. Again, I could do a whole nother episode just on them. It was so sad and weird. It was a lot. It was psychotic. They ended up getting laid off, like their whole team and the people they recruited with them. It was a lot. And when the people in charge found out, even they could see how crazy it was and how long I'd been dealing with it. And I'm in a weaker state, having to put up more and more of a fight every day. I can't tell you how bad things got at the office. Like, it's its own movie. Then, everywhere I go, somebody starts giving me an attitude to downright hostility. The cashier at Walgreens, the baristas at Starbucks, some old man at the grocery store. Everywhere. Everywhere I went 100% of the time. That's when it hit me. Something is going on. This isn't normal. But again, at this point, I just thought I was going through the book of Job. I didn't realize I was being targeted. I also never told anyone what was going on. I was also entering year 2 of my job where I was essentially pushing paper. I was getting paid well, but this wasn't what I moved to New York to do. I moved to New York to follow my dreams, and I wasn't doing that.